The last train had already screamed past the station when Marcus slid his key into the side door of WQVL, the little AM station that clung to life like mildew on the edge of town. The parking lot was empty except for his car and a rusted satellite van that hadn't moved in years. Beyond the floodlights, the fields fell away into a patient, breathing dark. Inside, the station was all buzzing fluorescence and the low, ceaseless hum of equipment too old to die. Posters of long-forgotten bands curled on the walls. A single red-on-air bulb watched him from the end of the corridor like a sleepless eye. Night Shift with Marcus Vail, midnight to 4. The kind of show no one listened to except insomniacs, hitchhikers, and the occasional drunk dialer. Marcus liked it that way. Talking into the void suited him. He hung his coat on the back of his chair, slid on his headphones, and breathed in the familiar scent of dust, burned coffee, and ozone. The clock over the mixing board rolled toward 12 o'clock with a soft, indifferent tick. He ran through his usual pre-flight: levels, faders, the aging cart machine with its teeth of plastic tapes. Everything was as it should be, until he noticed the new button. It sat just below the main frequency display, unlabeled, a dull metallic circle the color of old pennies. He frowned. He'd never seen it before. For a moment its blank surface caught the monitor glow and seemed to pulse. He leaned closer. The button was set into the console with a careless kind of precision, as if someone had rewired the guts of the station and left no note, no manual, no evidence but this small, waiting circle. The frequency display above it read 1510 kHz, WQVL's usual signal. But faintly, as though hidden beneath the glowing digits, Marcus thought he saw another number, ghosting the glass: 3.33. When he blinked, it vanished. Midnight hit with a soft relay click somewhere in the walls. The on-air light bloomed. Marcus pushed up the mic fader and slipped into his practiced tone. Good evening, wanderers of the sleepless hours. This is Marcus Vail, and you've tuned into Night Shift on WQVL, your companion on the long drive through the dark. He ran through the weather, the local headlines, a song set. The phone lines stayed dead. Outside, wind combed the tall grass, whispering against the building's brick shell. Between tracks, his eyes kept sliding back to the button. It felt wrong, out of place. Yet it tugged at him with the slow, sure gravity of a secret. Maybe it was just a new test feature. Management never told him anything. Some experimental relay, some backup frequency. He queued up an 8-minute track, a long reverb-soaked guitar piece, and as the intro washed into the night, he reached out. His fingertip hovered over the metal. The studio's hum seemed to deepen, thickening the air. "Don't be stupid," he muttered. Then with a soft, decisive pressure, he pressed the button. The effect was immediate but almost imperceptible. A hiccup in the lights, a microscopic flinch in the monitors. The on-air bulb dimmed, then steadied, but now its red glass looked darker, like something seen through deep water. On the frequency display, 1510 kHz flickered, bled, and rolled into a new set of digits that made no sense. 000, 3.33. Then the characters rearranged themselves, as if thinking better of it, and settled into a blank, pulsing dash. The music in his headphones thinned, like sound heard through falling snow. A low hiss slid in underneath, sand on sand, rising and falling in slow, tidal breaths. Marcus frowned and checked the board. All his settings were normal. Signal strength, fine. Modulation, clean. But the station's familiar background buzz had picked up a new texture, a faint, arrhythmic murmur. He leaned closer to the monitors. The murmur resolved into something almost like words, half-formed syllables dragged backward through the static, syllables that seemed to shape themselves around his own name. Mar. Cuss. He pulled off his headphones, heart ticking faster. Without them, the studio was dead quiet. Only the air conditioner's old lungs sighed in the corner. He slid the phones back on. The murmur was still there, louder now. Marcus! His throat dried. Who's on the line? He tried, keeping his voice level, professional. Maybe some freak with a ham radio was bleeding into the signal. If you've somehow patched into the station feed, you're going to want to disconnect. The hiss folded over itself, sharper, almost pleased. You opened the door, the voice said, each word stretched, as if dragged up from a very deep place. every needle on the console pegged into the red, though nothing in the room seemed louder at all. The music file ended on its own, far too early, its waveform frozen mid-peak on the screen. In its place, the strange frequency rushed in, a kind of living silence threaded with breath and husks of speech. The on-air light no longer glowed. It throbbed. Marcus killed the mic, hit a commercial card out of reflex. The jingle tried to start but warped into a long, drowned note and dissolved. "You're not supposed to be here," he whispered, not sure if he was talking to the voice or to himself. "But you're alone," it said, "and you pressed it." The phone line panel lit up all at once. Every extension, local, out of town, requests, blazed green. Yet no phone in the building rang. Marcus swallowed and jabbed a button at random, opening line 2. "WQVL, you're on the air," he said. A roar of distant wind poured through his headphones, mixed with the wet slap of something heavy dragged across a floor far away. Underneath it, a chorus of soft, uncoordinated voices whispered his name, overlapping, out of sync, like a crowd trying to remember the same song. The monitors above the console flickered. For a heartbeat, the station's security cameras showed not empty halls but long, unfamiliar corridors lit by swaying bulbs. The walls in the feed breathed, warping inward and outward, and thin shapes pressed against them from the other side. Then, static. "Turn it off," Marcus said, fingers scrambling for the mysterious button. It no longer sat on the console. In its place was only smooth plastic, as if it had never existed. "You can't turn off a door," the voice breathed, very close to his ear now. "You can only decide which side you stand on when it closes." The on-air light burst, plunging the studio into a red-veined dark. In the cracked bulb's reflection on the glass, Marcus saw the control room behind him was full, every inch of space occupied by pale, listening faces that were not his listeners, and yet had been listening to him for a very, very long time.